Welcome to today's edition of Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. आप सबनों प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. Before I start the show, I definitely would like to say that I come across a couple of people who have been watching the show. They talk to me individually, but there was a question कि भाजी अंग्रेजी ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਕਰੀਏ. ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਾਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਹਿੰਦੀ 'ਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. ਆਪਣਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. ਦਾ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਇਜ਼ ਕਿ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਕਰੀਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਡੀਅੰਸ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਵੈਰੀ ਡਾਈਵਰਸ ਆਡੀਅੰਸ ਔਨ ਦਿਸ ਚੈਨਲ. ਇਕੱਲਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਜਾਂ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੈ, ਦੂਜੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਡੀਅੰਸਿਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ from South India and East India, including apna Rajasthan and down south. When we look at it, oh jehde loki hain, they probably either they don't understand Punjabi or they are not that much literate in Hindi, and ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰੀਦਾ ਹੈ. ਬਟ ਇਟ ਡਜ਼ਨਟ ਮੀਨ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ नहीं पूछ सकते. You can always also email me on hstoor@gmail.com. ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਆਪਣੇ ਭੇਜ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. ਔਰ ਕਈ ਬੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਮੇਰਾ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਸੈੱਲ ਫੋਨ ਵੀ ਹੈਗਾ. they can always text me their question. ਮੇਰੇ ਸੈੱਲ ਫੋਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਨੰਬਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ you can definitely text me if you don't want to have your voice to be recognized by anybody. Kyunki I do understand the issues, I do understand some of the people, they do not want to be identified with any particular group because of their affiliation or non-affiliation with an organization, which can be an issue for not for their safety, but some people view it as yaar main kyun kisi nu kuch kehna hega ja why should I make somebody my enemy ਜਾਂ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣੀ ਕਾਹਨੂੰ ਲੈਣੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. ਸੋ ਫੀਲ ਫਰੀ, you can definitely give me a call like I said on the number which is 1-844-324-1300, and you can call on that number and you can email me, and definitely I will try to address your questions. Email is right there on the screen at hstoor@gmail.com. And if I don't do it in this show, then definitely when I start my next show, your questions will be answered. So starting the show today, first of all, that bombing which took place in Pakistan mosque, more than 100 people are dead already. They have done a mass burial over there. You know, it's a shame and tragedy that how the religion is used by fanatics to force their view. And I was surprised talking to one of the parent about some issue. You know, they have some domestic issues, and one of the kid told her parent that why don't you just keep quiet? Why don't you just let the things go, the things happen, this and that? Which means basically you are being told to tolerate injustice, whereas in the meantime we are talking about equality of everybody. And the other thing which I'm going to talk next week more in detail about Tyre Nichols' death in Memphis. It's a horrible tragedy. The only difference this time is that it is African American police officers beating up an African American person who died from that beating. Now just imagine had it been the way it is usually there, that they show white officers beating up a black person and doing that. And I was at a candlelight vigil last night at the Queensboro Hall, conducted by the Queensboro Hall president. And I saw him literally in the tears, and I also was listening to him when he was talking that how when he was only 13 that he got stopped for no reason, and how he was afraid that he got stopped and with the guns pulled out. Now just put yourself in those shoes and see if how you would feel a police officer pulling a gun, pointing at you and asking you questions. And interestingly, when I was going there to attend this event, a police officer who happens to be African American, he stopped me to question where I am going. And I told him, I said, well, I'm here on an invitation and this is what I'm going. And I did say to him, am I allowed? Is there any objection? And he was like, no, I'm just checking. And for me, why you are checking me? Just because I have a turban and a beard and I look different? He did not question anybody else. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, we still have a lot of work to do before we can really achieve what needs to be achieved equality-wise. So next Tuesday, I'm working on it. I was trying to get somebody today. And I want this person to be African American, not non-African American, because they have their own opinions. It's simple, if you're talking something to an issue, if the person is part of that community, then their perspective, that's what I wanted to know and share with you. And that's what I will do next time when I come on the show. But it's a tragedy beyond words, and a 29-year-old person calling out mom while he's getting beaten up by the cops, and he's only a couple of 100 feet from his mom's house. That hurts. When I looked at the video, yes, there are people who were telling me not to watch it because it is too much, but I'm like, no, you should watch it because you would know exactly what was going on. And when you look at the reports filed by the cops, those were totally different than what actually happened from the footage, which came from their cam videos. And thanks to those inventions where the cam videos are now being carried out by the cops, there was a big resistance at the beginning, but now they are accepting it. Yes, we expect too much from the cops also. I'm not saying blaming the cops alone, but then there is a limit where the cop has to stop. And sometimes they go beyond, and this is also one of those times where the cop went beyond, not cop, just the cops, they went beyond. And then for 20 minutes there was no ambulance there because they said, well, we missed somebody and we need an ambulance. There is a difference for calling the ambulance when the person is trying to breathe because of the beating, and a person who got maced. And yes, there are cases coming up against those cops who were involved, and also against EMT and some other people also. So it's really a tragedy that we are dealing with these things. And on top of everything else, we have war going on in Ukraine. I did talk about it last week also. Let me put a few things in the perspective which I look at on these things. Okay, when the current Russian president Vladimir Putin was first president, and he was met by Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and now Joe Biden. 5 presidents, different time, different durations. But nobody really tried to, number one, understand what he wanted. Of course, he is a, if we look at from his perspective, from Russian perspective, he is a die-hard patriotic person, because he wants that Russia to be again USSR. And he wanted all these Western countries to stay at a bay, keep the distance, which was not being kept after the fall of USSR. And yes, like we have cultural differences, that we have a different culture in Pakistan, in India, Bangladesh. Over here in Western societies, we have different culture. American culture is totally different than Canadian and Mexican culture and other South American countries. But at the same time, same way, there is a cultural difference between the Western countries and those European countries. Like I have already mentioned, that there is a Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and then there is a Christianity from Rome, and then there is a Protestant. And within England, it is the king or the queen of the England who is actually at the head of the church over there. So all those differences, they come to some sort of clash. So I'm going to continue on that, this tension on Ukraine after the break. So let us take a break, and I will be right back after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. Again, you can call me on the number which is on the screen also, and you can email me if you want. Punjabi च भी तुसी कॉल करके मेरे नाल गल कर सकते हो, हिंदी च भी कर सकते हो. The reason I'm repeating it today again and again, because I got stopped last week 2-3 times, and the question was, Paji program English ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਸਾਨੂੰ English नहीं आਉਂਦੀ ਇੰਨੀ, ਸਾਨੂੰ. It's not that they don't communicate in English at all, but they do not want on the TV screen where they will be heard and their voice may get recognized, and doesn't know English. So please feel free, you guys can call or you can send me an email about your questions. Going back to the issue of Russia, USSR/Russia versus Western countries. So we're talking about not only the faith-based that they have issues, but also Russia attacked Georgia way back when Putin was in charge within Russia. He was always in charge. Once Yeltsin left and Putin came in, since then Putin never left. He was either a president or a prime minister. When he was a prime minister, the president was basically sort of like a rubber stamp for Putin. Whatever Putin wanted, that was done. So when Georgia happened, there was not really a pushback. Then South Ossetia happened. A lot of people, they even don't know what this Ossetia is. This is also a very small country squeezed between Russian territory and the NATO country's territorial boundary line. So South Ossetia was created out of Ossetia. South Ossetia is something which is aligned with the current Russian country as it is, like Belarus is aligned with the Russians right now. China, even though, is not really helping anybody, but he is. China is something which is trying to get the benefits of both sides, being not helping Russia, but at the same time not creating the distance from Russia. So not much happened. Then in 2014, Russia actually took Crimea from Ukraine and claimed it to be Russian territory, except pushing Russia out of Olympics, nothing much was done. But yes, there is one thing which started, that Ukraine started training their army in a more better way. Western countries also started helping Ukraine to train their army. And that was one of the reasons that when the attack took place in February last year, everybody was surprised. First, they were surprised. A lot of people, they knew the attack will happen. Not many people, but USA was definitely confirmed that attack will happen, and it did happen on the day they mentioned that it would happen, which means intelligence, basically. And I will tell you later on about why I mentioned this thing. And also, at the same time, it was assumed that within 2 to 3 days, the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, will fall, and Russia will take over Ukraine and will make Ukraine as part of Russia, or Greater Russia, if I may say so. But that thing did not happen. Kyiv did not fall. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he refused to leave the country. He said no, like Churchill's speech, which I spoke before. He did that. No, we will fight, give me what I need to fight, and we will not leave Ukraine. Russia was able to take eastern part of Ukraine, and then they had to lose some. But now, as we are heading into the spring, they're talking about another offense, the spring offense. In the meantime, Ukraine is being provided with the armaments by NATO and other countries, including USA, to counter Russian superiority. It is not that much superior as far as the armament is concerned, but definitely Russians have few things like Su-57 plane, which is basically one of the latest version, generation 5 plane, 5th generation plane, which they call, which they have been using for some time, which is confirmed by Britishers that Russia is using that plane. They have few of them. Okay. Beside that, Russia do have nuclear capabilities and all these technology where they can fire the rockets wherever they want to fire those rockets. A lot of destruction infrastructurally. They just want to kill the morale of the population so that ultimately the population will give in. That is something we have to see. But one thing is for sure, that right now the Western countries in general and NATO in particular, they are looking at it. If we don't support Ukraine right now, then what will be the next? Who will be the next? And in the meantime, even though the posture is that nobody is willing to talk anything, nobody is ready to negotiate, but let us not forget, at the end of the day, every war, every fight ends with a negotiation at the table. That's why it is so important that even though on the face we have all these things going on, but in the back we may have diplomatic discussions going on. But one thing is for sure, that till both sides realize that they are stuck and they need to get out, the agreement will not be reached. Russia definitely is looking to get something out of this fight, and Ukraine is looking to regain all its territory, which will be considered a humiliation by Russia. And that is where again Vladimir Putin comes in, and when USA, being the leader of the Western countries, including the NATO, when they were dealing with him, they really did not, either they were not properly respecting him, or they were sidelining him, or whatever was happening over there behind the lines. We probably would know, not me, but down the road after 50 years or 70 years, the whole thing will come out when the governments, they start declassifying some of the information, and information comes out, and then you find out what was going on behind the doors. But right now, there is one thing which is for sure, that Ukraine is getting destroyed, and as a country, as a nation, doesn't matter which way we look at it, whether we look at it as an independent nation or we look at it as a partial independent nation ruled by whatever the agreement comes up, that nation needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. There is so much damage to everything over there. So now moving next to what is happening, that when we look at international politics, America plays a very dominant role, no doubt about it. But in the meantime, we have another axis, which is China is flexing its muscles, and USA was the country which actually made China what China is today. And yes, even though the US government banned the sale of some chips to manufacture and run some nuclear research labs in China, and those bans go back to 1997, but Chinese were able to get those chips through black market, and they have been using those chips for doing the research on their nuclear research labs and everything. So, in other words, when they put up the sanctions, like they did on Russia also, do they help? They do damage something to the country, but they don't do the damage to the extent which the people expect it will. Because these countries are not like the so-called third world countries where it will have more damage. These countries already have achieved some sophistication in certain fields, and they know how to get around. There always have been, and there always will be, the countries like, on the one side you have Russia, North Korea, China. On the other side you have USA, NATO countries. And then you have the BRICS countries, which is basically Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. At one point it was written off just like, oh, it's going to be nothing. But they have been working on this certain things together. And in the meantime, India actually is taking advantage of the current situation by buying the oil at a cheaper rate from Russia and boosting its economy. USA actually is trying to help India develop industry on its own. So we are going to take a break right now. After the break, I will be right back. And if somebody wants to send an email, please feel free. Right after the break, we'll see you. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. Yeah, we were talking about all these international politics, how it affects, and how the countries have their own interests, and how India is getting the investment from some of the Western countries, from the United States as well as from some of the European countries. China was actually made what China is today by these countries to counter Russia. Sometimes people say, oh, well, we have a few things in India right now. Yes, we definitely have a couple of things in India right now, no doubt about it. But those things did not happen overnight. We may agree with certain things, we may not agree with certain things, but right now we have so many programmers coming from India and so many companies from India doing offshore working for the big countries in Western Hemisphere. The foundation actually was laid down by Sam Petroda, and Rajiv Gandhi actually tapped him from Chicago to create the base for all these things. And yes, it takes time. That's why we have in India, that India is actually reaping the benefits of all that. There are other Asian countries, South Asian countries, which have been playing the role in doing all this computer work. But India is on the top of the list among those countries, which is providing all these software engineers, software programming, your phone answering. When you get the calls, you make calls to the companies here for businesses. The phones are basically answered either in India or in Indonesia most of the time. And then there are some other countries also which are on the map. So right now the investment is being made in India so that to counter China. The way investment was done in China to counter Russia, investment is being done in India to counter China. The difference will come in the democratic setup of India, which is there, and it does have its roots, even though we do have challenges coming up at different occasions, different things. For example, this BBC documentary which came on the Prime Minister Modi, how the people who are either watching it, they are being penalized, who are trying to, it has been blacklisted, it has been taken down by YouTube, and they have complied with it because it's a big market. They don't want to lose it. The way China also, muscles some of the policies through the big corporations. And big corporations, they look at their bottom line, their profits, and they weigh it out, and freedom of speech becomes a target of that. So yes, we will see a rapid increase in the products and everything which is happening in India. So that is something which, how it will help, we will see. But one thing we need to make sure that still when you go to India, corruption is still there, that censorship is still there. It's in a different form and shape, but yes, it is still there. We may agree, we may not agree, depending on who you believe. But looking at the facts, when you look at it, yes, it is there. I will give you another example, a perfect example. Mr. Sisodia, who happens to be the education minister in AAP's Delhi government, the day he was on the front page of New York, within 48 hours, enforcement directorate was at his house, searching his house for, so that they can find something to put him behind the bars. They interrogated him for hours and hours and they could not find anything. One of the UP's education minister said that come and visit our schools. Sisodia did go in Lucknow, and he was stopped by the cops, and the cops won't let him go. The DC on the phone told him that no, you are not welcome, you will not be allowed to go to the school. On the one hand, we say that you have the freedom to go anywhere, and on the other hand, here is a minister who is being stopped to go to just a school. So those are the examples of how some of the freedom of speech is affected, some of the things are done. And we still have a court system in India where it is still working. And Right to Information Act, which was actually brought by the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, it is still effective. And lot of there is a new filing right now under RTI Act about some of the actions taken by the government on the banning that documentary. I always say, put the facts out. If you have the facts, put the facts out, counter it. Why you are stopping the documentary from being seen by the people? So, moving forward, we have here in the United States, George Santos, he decided to not to sit on any committee right now. Let's not forget one thing, yes, the politics has gone so low. Honestly, I never expected, in this country at least, that it will go so low. But yes, it did, including the Attorney General Bill Barr, who actually did every bidding for President Donald Trump, except he told him that no fraud took place and he did lose election fair and square. And those people who actually denied the results, they are on the ethics committee put up by Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House. And all Republicans who are on that committee, they are all election deniers. What is something which I just don't understand is how, if the same ballot, on the same ballot, if the president lost, we don't accept that result. But in the meantime, down the ballot, the other candidates which were your candidates and they won, that is acceptable. Then they are saying the votes were switched. Why the votes were switched only on one candidate? Why not the whole vote? Because ultimately it's one vote. I don't know different states, whatever their procedures are, but in in New York, I know when you go out to vote, even though everything is electronic, but when you go in to vote, first you have to prove yourself. You don't have to show the ID, but they check your address. After checking your address, then they ask you to sign. They match your signatures with the signature they have on record, and if the signatures match, then they give you the paper ballot. And that paper ballot actually you mark, you go to the machine, you feed that paper ballot into the machine which reads the ballot to tabulate, so that the results at the end of the day you have electronically calculated votes, and you also have the paper trail of the votes. So that is something which we have to watch, because 2024 is around the corner. We are already hearing the former President Donald Trump, he is already campaigning. He started his campaign this Sunday. He started from New Hampshire, and interestingly, the governor of New Hampshire, John Sununu, did not join him, because John Sununu was one of those governors who stuck to the guns that election is fair and square and there is no ifs and buts about the results on the elections. And he also is planning to throw his hat into the ring to run for the presidentship, because the 2022 election, Republicans, they were trying to recruit him to run for the Senate because he's very popular in the state. And he definitely is a fair-minded person, even though he may have his own views on certain things. But I still consider him a more appropriate middle of the Republican than the others, like Kevin McCarthy. So this is something which we are going to look at. He did not show up at that convention where Donald Trump spoke, and he actually did say that he probably is looking to run again to the president, and even though he is at the 8th or 9th place, but that's where he is right now. So we're going to take a break, and after the break we are going to go more deep into 2024 election and what to expect from the House and from 2024 candidates right after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Toor. We're talking about a few very important issues right here in United States. First of all, we have a debt ceiling meeting going on tomorrow between the President Biden at the White House and Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House. They are going to talk, and they are trying to discuss what exactly are their views. How much we would know, I don't know. But as we know more about the meeting, after the meeting, whatever will come out, I will definitely let you know about it, what is happening. Number one. Number two, New York City's Hudson Tunnel, which was actually to be replaced. The whole thing started with way back. I even don't know how long ago they started this, but I know that President Obama did provide some funding for that in one of the budget. But at that time, Chris Christie, who was the governor of New Jersey, he refused to do it. And then the Sandy happened, and it damaged even further. And then Chris Christie was gone from the scene. And now, tunnel still needs to be replaced. And there is no consequence for Chris Christie for putting this thing off and adding billions and billions of dollars in overhead expenses because of inflation and everything. But anyway, like they say, Deer hai durust hai, at least the construction will start now, even though it is supposed to open up or finish the construction in 2038. The only guarantee is that if next time anything like Sandy happens, the tunnel will be operative, not like totally cut off Manhattan and east of New York, Long Island and Queens, Brooklyn and everything from rest of the country. That's another thing, and that is part of that infrastructure bill which was passed by Joe Biden as a president. Interestingly, within Republicans, there are two groups. One is within the Senate, we have two groups, Mitch McConnell, and on one side, and we have Chris from the former governor of Florida, who is on the other, who actually challenged for Mitch McConnell to be the minority leader in the Senate. Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell were together in Kentucky to lay the foundation stone for one of the bridges to be replaced under that infrastructure bill. And that's where they showed each other, born homie, that how they like each other and they can work together. Basically, what they were trying to tell the people, that even though we are from two different parties, Republicans and Democrats, but if we put our heads together, there are things which we can work together and put our heads together and make people look for benefits of jointly working for the benefit of the people and the country. And on top of that, then we also have like after debt ceiling, Joe Biden is going to go to the Congress. I think it is on February 6th when he goes and speaks over there. And we will see, but let's not forget one thing, they always have this DOA, which is basically dead on arrival. Any budget coming from the president's office, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, when it comes down to the House, they say it's dead on arrival means, yes, it's a blueprint, but it doesn't mean the final building will be like that. So that's what it is. And we will see how those things go. And also, there is another thing to it, and that actually is something which we have to look at, that how within the House, Kevin McCarthy, which that slim majority and the demands and agreements he made with those extreme elements, how it will affect the functioning. On the other hand, let us not forget, we have Jeffries Hakeem, the minority leader in the House, already talking about Republicans, when some of them mentioned that Social Security and Medicare should also be made the changes and compromised or reduced. So they are actually going to push in 2024 election that Republicans want to cut the Social Security and Medicare. Let's not forget one thing, that this program actually was implemented by a Democrat president, and since then Republicans, they want to kill it. The 1972 Roe versus Wade decision, Republicans wanted to reverse it. It took them 50 years to get it done, and they succeeded. So let's not forget, this is a way of democratic working in the United States. And also for the RNC, Republican National Committee, Harpreet, who was a candidate, she did not win, even though she got about 162 votes out of 700 something. And but it was a big step for South Asians to step up to the plate and challenge something. Nikki Haley is also, who happens to be Randhawa, a Punjabi lady, planning to run for the president of the United States. She was the governor in Georgia. So even though after Wisconsin shooting, she immediately did not come out that I come from a Sikh family. Her dad, her brother, they are the Sikhs with the beard and turban and everything. So that is something I don't know what to expect and what to say. But yes, that Nikki Haley, who also was UN ambassador from US appointed by Donald Trump, she was one of them. Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, who Trump actually endorsed and helped him to win, he also is running, and right now as we talk, he is actually leading Trump. But then again, we don't know how many candidates are there, and Trump may end up becoming a candidate again from Republicans. And if that happens, then I don't know how it is going to be. Joe Biden also, after the state of the state, may end up declaring whether he's going to run or not. Looks like he will. So we'll see that part. And on the other side, if Donald Trump loses the primary of the Republicans, he may run as an independent. And if he decides to run as an independent, let's not forget, he has a die-hard following within the Republicans of about 28%. They may follow him. And that can be a big challenge for the Republican Party to win the White House, but it can be a gain for the Democrats. So we will see how the things go and how the future 2024 will shape up. But as we move closer to the end of 2023, I know today is the last day of January only. We still have 11 months to go, but there is a lot of things which could happen. And on the last note, there was not a single confidential email in the email server which was Hillary Clinton's email server. So go guess. Just think about it. Till next time, good night and good luck.